Rain poured over the dim streets of Seoul, drumming against neon signs and empty sidewalks. Amid the downpour, a small boy, no older than 8, ran barefoot through puddles, his breath hitching with panic. His tiny hands clutched the straps of his worn backpack as his voice cracked through the night. "Please, someone help me." A row of motorcycles stood under a flickering light beside a pojangmaka. The riders, leather jackets soaked, helmets resting on tables, turned as the boy stumbled before them, tears mixing with rain. His voice trembled, desperate, cutting through the rumble of thunder. "Please save my sister." They took her, please. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of dripping rain filled the silence, heavy and uncertain. One of the bikers raised an eyebrow. Another exchanged glances, confusion mixed with disbelief. But the smallest in the group, a young rider with kind eyes, leaned forward. Seeing the boy's trembling lips and the raw fear in his eyes, somewhere behind them. A police siren wailed faintly, but no one moved. The boy fell to his knees, clutching his chest as sobs shook his fragile frame. The leader of the group, Min Jae, slowly rose. His expression unreadable beneath the dim orange glowed. He crouched down, voice deep but calm. "Tell me what happened, kid." The boy's lips quivered, barely able to speak. They're hurting my sister. Please, you have bikes. You can get there faster." Min Jae's jaw tightened. Around them, engines softly growled to life, one by one. The rain hit harder, washing over faces that had seen too much of life, now facing something purer, a child's plea. And in that moment, something shifted. The leader gave a small nod. "Show us the way." The boy stood, his fear replaced by fragile hope, and as the engines roared, the darkness of Seoul lit up with the promise of salvation. Morning sunlight spilled through thin curtains, brushing over the small apartment near the Han River. The faint sound of frying eggs filled the kitchen, mingled with the smell of seaweed soup. Ji-hoon, the little boy from last night, sat at the table swinging his legs, while his older sister, Soo-min, packed her worn school bag beside him. Their mother, Hannah, moved quietly between them, her face gentle but tired. She worked long shifts at a local convenience store, yet always managed to greet them with a soft smile. "Eat slowly, Ji-hoon. You'll choke again," she said, ruffling his hair. Soo-min gave a half smile, though her eyes looked distant. "I'll walk him to school today, Yama." Outside, the narrow alley buzzed with morning chatter, the clinking of delivery trucks, the chatter of vendors setting up their stalls. Children in uniforms hurried past with laughter echoing off the old apartment walls. But Soo-min walked slower, her gaze fixed on the ground. She had always been quiet, shy, the kind of girl who sat by the window in class. Lately, she'd been coming home later, her shoes scuffed, her mood withdrawn. Ji-hoon noticed the bruises she tried to hide, the way she avoided phone calls, the trembling in her voice when she said, "It's nothing." At school, whispers followed her, cruel jokes from a few classmates, mockery disguised as laughter. But she stayed silent, enduring it all. She didn't want to burden her mother or frighten her little brother. That evening, Hannah returned home exhausted, her uniform damp with rain. She smiled faintly at her children, serving them instant noodles. Ji-hoon told stories from school, trying to make her laugh. Soo-min barely ate, her chopsticks frozen in midair as her phone buzzed. Another message that made her face pale. Hannah reached over gently. "Everything okay, Soo-min?" A pause, then the practiced smile. "Yes, Yama. Just homework." But Ji-hoon watched her quietly. He knew something was wrong, the kind of wrong that no one wanted to say out loud. As the night deepened, thunder rumbled outside, and Soo-min stared out the window. Somewhere far away, motorcycles echoed faintly through the rain, unaware that soon their paths would cross. The afternoon sky over Seoul dimmed beneath gathering clouds, the air thick with the scent of rain. Soo-min left school later than usual, her backpack clutched tightly against her chest. Her classmates had already gone, and the corridors echoed with the distant hum of janitors cleaning floors. She walked alone through narrow streets lined with neon arcade signs and old karaoke shops. Her steps quickened when she realized she was being followed, faint laughter behind her, the kind that sends chills down your spine. 3 older students stepped from the shadows, blocking her way near a small alley behind an arcade. Their faces half hidden beneath hoods, one of them smirked. "Still acting better than everyone else, huh?" One taunted, kicking a can across the pavement. Sumin's voice trembled. Please, I just want to go home. They laughed, circling closer, snatching her bag and dumping her notebooks into a puddle. A sheet of paper clung to the wet ground, the ink running like tears. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon waited outside their mother's store, watching the time tick past. His sister was never this late. Rain began to fall, first softly, then heavier. He grabbed his umbrella and started down the familiar street, calling her name. When he turned the corner by the arcade, he froze. Through the rain, he saw her, surrounded, crying, trapped. His heart pounded so hard it drowned out the thunder. For a moment, he thought of running to her, but fear pinned him in place. He was small, powerless, and the bullies towered over her. Then something inside him snapped. He dropped his umbrella and ran. His slippers splashed through puddles, his breath sharp and ragged as he darted through twisting alleys. He didn't know where he was going, only that someone had to help. Turning a corner, he stumbled into a parking lot filled with motorcycles gleaming under the flickering streetlight. A group of bikers stood there, tattoos glinting, laughter echoing under the rain. They looked fierce, untouchable, but Ji-hoon didn't care that he ran straight to them, gasping for air, his voice breaking with desperation. Please, please save my sister. The laughter died. One of them lowered his cigarette. The boy's small frame shook with rain and fear, yet his eyes burned with pleading courage. And for the first time that night, silence carried more weight than thunder. The rain fell harder now, drumming against the metal roofs and echoing across the empty parking lot. The bikers stood frozen, their eyes darting between the trembling boy and their leader. Min-jae, a man in his late 30s with calm eyes that had seen both loyalty and loss. That Ji-hoon's voice cracked as he spoke again, barely louder than the rain. They're hurting her. Near the arcade. He pointed down the narrow street, his small hand shaking uncontrollably. One of the riders scoffed, zipping up his jacket. Kid, this isn't our problem. Another muttered. Cops should handle it. But Min-jae didn't move. He looked at Ji-hoon, the soaked school uniform, the scraped knees, the tears he didn't bother to wipe. Something about it tugged at a memory buried deep inside him. A night long ago when no one came to help his sister. Min-jae, we can't get involved, one of the riders said quietly. We'll just make things worse. Min-jae turned slowly toward him. Worse for who? The group fell silent. The only sound left was the steady pitter of rain that he knelt down in front of Ji-hoon. What's your name? Ji-hoon, the boy whispered. And your sister? Sumin. Min-jae's jaw tightened. He rose to his feet and turned to his crew. We ride. A low rumble followed as helmets went on, engines flaring to life one by one. The boy stood in awe as the roar filled the alley, a sound that felt like thunder answering his plea. The youngest biker, Jin-soo, leaned close to Min-jae. Hyung, you sure about this? Min-jae pulled on his gloves. You heard him. We've got a sister to save. Ji-hoon climbed onto the back of Min-jae's bike, clutching tightly as they sped off into the storm. The city lights blurred past, convenience stores, neon reflections, and startled pedestrians. The engines echoed through the wet streets, cutting through the night like a promise. Behind them, the rain swallowed their trail. But in Ji-hoon's heart burned a fragile flame of hope. For the first time, he wasn't running away from fear. He was racing toward courage. The motorcycles roared into the narrow alley, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. The bullies froze, startled by the sudden flood of blinding light and the growl of engines closing in. Water splashed as the bikes screeched to a halt, forming a wall between Su-min and her tormentors. Ji-hoon leapt off first, running to his sister. Nuna, he cried, slipping on the wet ground before wrapping his arms around her. She trembled in shock, her hands still covering her face. Min-jae stepped forward, removing his helmet slowly. Steam rose from his jacket as rain hissed against the leather. His voice was calm, but carried weight. You think it's fun to scare someone weaker than you? The tallest bully tried to sneer, masking fear with arrogance. Who are you supposed to be? Her bodyguards? Min-jae's gaze didn't waver. No, just people who don't turn away. Another biker, Jin-soo, revved his engine, the roar echoing through the alley. The sound alone made the bullies flinch. For a moment, no one spoke, just rain, heartbeats, and headlights glaring against trembling faces. Then, one of the teens took a step back. Another followed. Within seconds, All three bolted down the alley, slipping and stumbling as they vanished into the storm. Silence returned, broken only by Su-min's quiet sobs. She sank to her knees, the weight of fear lifting as her brother held her tight. "It's okay, Nuna. They're gone now." Min-jae looked down at the siblings, his expression softening. "You're safe now. Let's get you home." For the first time that night, Su-min looked up, her eyes meeting those of the man who had just become an unexpected savior. In the reflection of his helmet, she saw her own face, tear-streaked but freed. As the bikers mounted their rides again, Ji-hoon bowed deeply, his small voice barely audible through the rain. "Thank you, all of you." Min-jae gave a faint smile beneath his visor. "Take care of your sister, Ji-hoon. Always." Engines ignited once more, echoing like thunder as the riders disappeared into the misty streets, leaving only the fading glow of headlights and the quiet sound of hope returning. Morning broke softly over Seoul, painting the wet streets gold. The chaos of the night before had faded, replaced by quiet murmurs and the faint hum of traffic. In front of the small police station near Mapo, Su-min sat on a bench wrapped in a blanket. Ji-hoon sat beside her, clutching a paper cup of warm tea with both hands. Their mother, Hannah, arrived moments later, her face pale with worry. The moment she saw them, she ran forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. She pulled both children into her arms, her voice trembling. "My babies, are you okay?" Su-min nodded weakly, her words breaking between sobs. "I'm sorry, Yama. I didn't tell you." Hannah shook her head, holding her tighter. "No, I'm just glad you're safe." Nearby, Min-jae and his crew stood quietly, speaking with an officer. They didn't want credit or attention. They just wanted to be sure the kids were safe. Jinsu looked at Ji-hoon and gave him a small thumbs dash up that as the police took statements. The rain finally stopped. Sunlight caught droplets on Min-jae's jacket, making them sparkle like tiny shards of glass. He turned to leave, but Ji-hoon ran toward him. "Hyung," the boy called out, his small voice filled with gratitude. Min-jae stopped. Ji-hoon held out something, a red bandana that had fallen from his jacket earlier. "You dropped this." Min-jae smiled faintly, taking it back, then knelt so he could meet the boy's eyes. "Keep it," he said softly, tying it around Ji-hoon's wrist. "To remind you, courage isn't about being strong. It's about standing up, even when you're scared." Ji-hoon nodded, eyes glistening. "I'll protect her. Always." Min-jae placed a hand on his shoulder. That's all a brother needs to say. As the bikers mounted their motorcycles once more, Hannah and her children bowed deeply. Engines rumbled, and the group disappeared down the street, the sound fading into the morning air, a sound not of danger, but of quiet heroes heading home. Ji-hoon looked down at the red bandana fluttering on his wrist, then up at the sky now clearing over the Han River. For the first time in a long while, he smiled, because kindness had found them in the most unexpected way. Sometimes, heroes don't wear uniforms or shine under spotlights. They appear when the world turns its back. That night in Seoul, one small boy's cry for help reached hearts made of steel, but softened by memory. And because of that courage, a sister was saved, and a family found hope again. As the rain cleared, life slowly returned to normal. But Ji-hoon never forgot the roar of those engines, or the man who taught him what bravery truly means. Every time he saw the red bandana fluttering from his wrist, he remembered, even a whisper of courage can echo louder than fear. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes that kindness exists, that somewhere out there, people still stop when they hear someone cry for help. Tell us in the comments. Would you step forward if you saw someone in trouble? Your words might inspire the next act of courage. And don't forget to subscribe, because in every corner of the world, there's another story waiting, of love, of bravery, and of ordinary people who become heroes when it matters most.